Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. It's really nice to see you all again. I have a little life update that I'd like to share with you, and then we're going to be talking about what I'm doing with the garden this year, hopefully giving you some inspiration at home so you can take these ideas on and try them in your own gardens. I've come to a really exciting chapter in my life. I am going to be transitioning. I'm taking on the name Lucy, and I am now going to be obviously a trans woman. Some of you may have known me as Dave for a long time, and obviously this is going to be a thing to get used to. But if I refer to myself as Lucy, or if there's anything going on that's a bit weird, then at least you know that the context is there. I'm really excited to be taking this new chapter on, and the garden has really helped me with my identity. I've obviously been struggling with it for a long time. I haven't shared anything really very socially until about last year, where I came out on Instagram, and I'm just slowly starting to blossom into who I want to be now. And I feel a lot happier, a lot more confident, and it's actually giving me new energy to spend time on the plot and see it in a different way. It's been quite a chilly winter this year, almost like 2018, although 2018 had a lot of snow. I remember it being quite snowy even in Bristol, but this year it's just been cold and dry. It's presented a whole host of new challenges for me as a gardener, and I think I can safely say that a lot of you have also been suffering. For instance, I've lost a lot of my leafy greens. They have gone. Thankfully, the kale is still surviving. I've had to cover my broad beans for the first time ever this year, just to keep them a little bit warmer, because they were really suffering. It's not just the case that we've had a cold winter. We've had cold and then warm and then cold and then warm. And it's creating a bit of a problem because those plants that do normally survive, they then got hit by that warm rain, and it meant that a lot of them just went to mush. It does feel like nature is telling me to have a bit of a clean slate this year. So a lot of my perennial plants that I would normally have sort of gone over, keeled over, and I've got a new blank slate to work with. I want to share with you a little idea that I've had for heating my polytunnel in the winter. Those of you who've been following me for a while will know that I am obsessed with hot compost. I've got two piles in the polytunnel that are currently heating things in here. So I've got a very large one here, and then I've just got like a rubble sack, a kind of IKEA rubble sack over there, with some onions on top. What's really funny this year is the thing that's powering these compost piles is pigeon manure. Now this pigeon manure was left by a local pigeon racer, so the pigeons are healthy. I wouldn't use city pigeon poo because that would have diseases and pathogens in, which would be very harmful to us if we were to breathe that in. It's very strong in here because there's just a lot of ammonia. What happens is if you add a very nitrogen rich material like manure into a pile, and pigeon poo is very high in nitrogen, then it creates ammonia. So what I've been doing is piling the wood chip into these two piles just to cut down on the smell, and eventually it is starting to settle down now. And I don't spend a lot of time in here as well because you don't want to breathe that stuff in. But it's really high in NPK, so nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium are the three macronutrients that plants need to grow really well. And we get a lot of nitrogen from the ground and from plants anyway, but it's quite hard to get phosphorus to put it back into the soil. So pigeon poo has quite a high concentrate of that. I'm putting it into these compost piles, and then what I'll do is I'll use the compost in a 3 months or 4 months onto my polytunnel beds and outside as well, in the hope that I'll get some bigger, more abundant crops this year. The ice is just starting to thaw out on this. Hopefully, we have got some warmer weather forecast for the next few days, so hopefully I won't have to deal with this. But it has been a constant annoyance through the winter, and I'm a bit worried because there are fish in here. However, you know, they're swimming sort of down in the depths really. This is really useful. So I use this water diluted on my plants because fish poo has nitrogen, a bit of phosphorus and a bit of potassium in it too. So it's a really good little top-up feed for my plants, which I use in the summer. Even this kale plant looks really sad at the minute. I mean, it will probably grow back from the base, but it just looks so sad. Thankfully, there are still some kale plants that are looking okay. So we've got this one over here. and then we've got about 3 over there. I'm taking this as a sign that I just need to restart my whole brassica and leafy green sowing. It is really upsetting because I was hoping to use them this year in a lot of my cooking over the winter, because it's one of the only things that you can pick fresh in the winter here. But saying that, I will start sowing my sort of kohlrabi and spinach, some of my early brassicas, probably mid-February. So then I can plant them out in March, hopefully, and just start filling these gaps up again. I'm really starting to get some leafy greens through and onto my plate in April and May. The autumn raspberries have been chopped down and mulched, and I'll put some of that pigeon poo compost on top of a lot of these beds here. You can sort of see. And I finally, those of you who've watched my bramble video will know that that was the bramble area, and I have finally tamed it. I've finally taken out as much of the brambles as I can, and now that is going to be a new squash growing space right in the corner there. If you have some old little plastic greenhouses kicking around and you want to use them really cleverly on your gardens, then look at this. So this was what my fig tree was in for a long time, and I decided to take it out, upturn it, and now it's just keeping these broad beans inside a little bit warmer. So you can see there's still a lot of green in there. They're looking okay, actually, surprisingly. It has dropped down to about -5, -6 at times out here. That stuff over there is old polytunnel fabric, so it was left over from the construction of the polytunnel, and it acts as a really good kind of frost protector. So I've got that over there and that over there, and then I've got some more over here, and it's just keeping some of the broad beans a little bit greener. If you're enjoying this video so far and you'd like to follow me on my growing journey, then why not hit the subscribe button down below? Why not give it a thumbs up down below too? Thank you. This year has been one of the first years where I haven't really been able to be distracted by the plot. The reason being that obviously we've had lots of cold weather and wet weather, which means I couldn't get stuck into the plot. And that also meant that a lot of the plants that I would normally grow and would normally occupy my time through the winter are not here. And so it means that I have a lot more drive to want to, I'm willing spring to be here a lot more than I normally would. I don't know if a lot of you feel like that out there. Let me know in the comments if you do feel that way, because it's really interesting. And I think I had that in 2018 as well, and it really compelled me to change the plot. Every year I grow my own food, I find that they do well, the crops do well, but they're always a little bit small and are not as abundant as I want them to be. And I'm going to try and change that this year. I've just started putting loads of my own home compost onto the beds, but I'm finding that home compost is not enough to feed my plants. Home compost doesn't have enough nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium to keep them happy and get them really big and plush. And I discovered that bat guano is a really good source for all 3 of those things. So I'm going to be testing bat guano out on my plots. I'll be spreading it over my beds. And the beauty of it is that I can use and test the bat guano in March and April, and I can let you know the results pretty soon after, so that if you're interested and you want to try it on your plots, you can get it on in time for May and June. It's a really fast acting food, so it'll work into the soil, but I'll have a look at it as I grow and you can follow along. And if it looks good to you and it's doing me some good, then maybe you might want to try it on your plots too. The good thing about bat guano is it's also a lot cheaper than buying a whole load of cow manure. That's because it's really efficient. So bat guano is a much higher concentrate of nitrogen, potassium and phosphorus, as opposed to cow manure, horse manure and even chicken manure. So you can create your own compost, and then you just add this in like a food source, and you've got really powerful compost then, lots of food in it, and you've only spent about £13. Hopefully I've given you some inspiration and some ideas to try out in your gardens this year. I'm really excited, and like I said earlier in the video, lots of optimism, and this sort of cold weather has almost forced me into a little box, and I just want to get out and start gardening. And I think that's a really powerful kind of energy, and I'm going to really use that this year. And hopefully, along with those ideas I discussed about sort of manure and looking at NPK and where your nutrients are coming from, I can really replenish the plots and get very tasty, very abundant crops this year. It is something that I've noticed is that, you know, I get good crops, but I don't get amazing or great crops. My plants don't look really plush and big, and that's what I really want this year. thank you so much for watching today's video. Let me know in the comments if you're brimming to get out in your garden, obviously we all are, what you're looking forward to sowing the most, and if you have any exciting ideas that you'd like to try out in your patches this year. I'll see you in the next video. If you'd like to check out any more of my videos, you can find them over here. Bye!